Well, let's get some analysis now with Fabrizio Tassinari, who's an Italian political scientist and the Executive Director and Berggruen Fellow at the EUI's School of Transitional Governance. He joins us now from Kampala. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Firstly, what are your initial reactions to what Mario Draghi looks like he's about to do, to resign for a second time?
Well, good morning. From where I sit, I would think this was a disaster waiting to happen, in the sense that the coalition supporting Draghi was always somewhat fractious. At the same time, it's fair to say that it is entirely self-inflicted. There was no objective external factor that required this development to occur right now. It anticipated, as your correspondent correctly mentioned, developments that would have occurred anyhow in a few months' time. But of course, now we are again in an emergency mode, and that doesn't help from a political or economic standpoint.
No, that's right. And it's interesting because when Mario Draghi did become Prime Minister, he was seen as a bit of a shining beacon because he was the former head of the European Central Bank, a very credible figure, perhaps someone who could take Italy out of its economic doldrums, its heavily indebted situation. So what went wrong for Draghi? Was he perhaps just good on the technical side, but just bad at politics?
Italy has a tradition, which in fact is a dysfunction, of calling in technocrats, respected technocrats, when politics goes into chaos, which is admittedly rather often. So Draghi is in the mold of some of his predecessors, such as Ciampi or Monti. The difference here is that once he got into office, then it's fair to say that he pursued a boldly political agenda, not necessarily against any of the parties supporting the government, but also not an agenda that you would expect from an independent, non-partisan prime minister. This primarily concerns its policy towards Russia in relation to the Ukraine war, whereby his position has been rather strong and rather consistent in supporting Ukraine, while some of the parties supporting the government have been increasingly dithering. And I believe this is the kind of erosion of support that led eventually to yesterday's developments.
Yes, because the populist members of that coalition, La Liga and the Five Star Movement, really do support the Russian cause. They support Putin. So was it the tough stance against Russia that perhaps saw these two coalition partners pull their support from Draghi? Looks like we might have lost that connection with our guest, with Fabrizio Tassinari, but I do thank him for joining us once again on the program.